So, oh, and you're smiling. So you've seen this before.
Oh yeah.
Is there, and we all know landlords can kill deals. Is there anything that can a business broker can do to try to make the landlord be a little more reasonable? He's actually,
Yeah, what is the landlord saying? That the buyer's not qualified or that they just don't want to provide any kind of lease?
they don't like the SBA lesser consent form. And of course, they came up with their own, which is a no-go. And the seller is willing to, of course, stay on the lease. He's even willing to just be the buyer's guarantor because he's been there for 17 years. And the landlord still wants to charge $1 million deposit. Then you said, okay, well, what if we get SBA out of the picture and the seller just provides the financing? The landlord still will not change. And the landlord said that his main issue was the built-ins being taken out in case of default. And we all know, come on, but how much are you going to get off of that?
So what state is this in?
California, Northern California.
So I would maybe try to see if the landlord will permit a sublease. If the seller is willing to continue with the lease and then just sublease to the buyer, then the seller is the one that's on the hook for all of that. The seller has already had a lease. Did the seller have $1 million deposit?
No, the seller's deposit was only $18,000. And I did bring up a sublease, so I'm waiting to hear. I don't have an answer if he's going to go for that or not, but I didn't know what else to do.
I mean, it seems really unreasonable. What do you think the real problem is?
I kind of, this is bad, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I kind of think the seller and the landlord they're in cahoots to something and have something else going on. I think they want my guy out.
So what, for whatever reason, they don't like the buyer.
That's what I'm kind of thinking.
Have you had a conversation with the seller, or do you represent the seller, or do you
I,
only
rep-
represent the buyer?
I only represent the buyer.
Okay. Yeah, who represents the seller?
Another agent, I don't know.
I mean, you might want to talk to that agent and see if they can get the real deal from their client.
Okay.
Because look, I mean, that does happen, especially in business transactions. Buyer and seller have to get along to some extent. There's going to be a transition period afterwards, and seller may have gotten a better offer from somebody else and maybe trying to kill the deal so he can take that better offer. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But it's you know short of litigation, which you don't want to do. It's
Yeah.
expensive and it's ugly and it's a time suck. There's not a real good solution here if the seller doesn't want. I mean, but it sounds to me, if the seller has agreed to stay on the lease and the seller agreed to sublease, then it doesn't really sound like the seller is trying to get rid of the buyer.
I
Sounds
think
like
he
they're
flips
trying to
back and
cooperate.
forth. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they flip back and forth. I don't know. I'm really thinking if this doesn't work, if they say no on the sublease, then I'm thinking that maybe because the buyer is approved for $1,450,000, I'm thinking we should take that approval and find another business.
Yeah. Just go find another business. I mean, I had a situation with a landlord one time. It was in the farmer's market in down in the Los Angeles area. And the owners of the farmer's market didn't like the buyer ultimately. And I think the seller had kind of ticked them off to some extent too. And all of the spaces in the farmers market, they wanted month to month. They typically didn't offer any leases. And so we were trying to get just a 2-year lease, because we had an SBA lender and all that would be satisfied with even just a 2-year lease, to transfer this thing, where normally they want 10. So they took 3 months to get back to us on this, where, I mean, literally we were ready to close a transaction. We just needed the lease assigned, or we needed a lease. They dragged it out. Finally, 3 months later, they said, okay, we'll give you a lease, doubled the rent rate, and wanted $50,000 in key money. So it was just like, you know what, go pound sand. We're done.
Right.
And that was it. And then we had to tell the seller, sorry, but there's no way we can sell your business because your landlord's a jerk. I mean, sometimes you just can't work with them. I mean, they own the property, they can do whatever they want, and they like to play king. So if they don't like a buyer for whatever reason, there's sometimes not a lot you can do about it, except just go find a different business.
Gotcha.
So yeah, landlords can definitely kill deals. You do the best. The buyer even agreed to pay the 2 years of the lease in advance. It was like, give me a 2-year lease, I'll pay it in advance.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they doubled the rent and wanted 50,000 key money.
Jeez.
So
thanks for your help, sweetie.
Not sure it was very helpful, Karen, but I tried.